By now, every single MMA fan in the world knows the name Alex Poatan Pereira.
Alex Poatan Pereira! That's what I'm talking about!
Don't let his recent loss fool you. This man is one of the most dominant fighters of his generation. He's delivered some insane finishes, and we're taking a trip down memory lane. Welcome to Box Zone. Today, we count down Poatan's 5 greatest knockouts. Enjoy. What better way to start than with Pereira's greatest rival, Israel Adesanya? These two share a deeper history that goes beyond the sport, dating back to their kickboxing bouts before stepping into the octagon. From their first kickboxing match in 2016 to headlining UFC 287 in 2023, their rivalry spans 7 years. The first time they faced off in 2016, Pereira won by unanimous decision. It wasn't a convincing win, as it could have gone either way depending on the judges. However, the second time they fought, Pereira left no doubts. On March 4, 2017, Adesanya faced Pereira for their second kickboxing bout. And this particular knockout marked one of Pereira's career's greatest. A brutal left hook in the third round left Adesanya's lights out. The same left hook that would go on to terrorize the UFC. Fourth on this list of the most brutal Pereira knockouts takes us to his first ever fight in the UFC. Pereira debuted at UFC 268 against a fighter by the name of Andreas Michailidis. At the time, many had heard about Pereira's reputation in the kickboxing world as one of the most dangerous strikers on the planet. Still, he was fresh to the MMA scene, with just a 3-1 record, leaving fans unsure about what to expect when he joined the UFC. But Pereira turned his debut fight into a spectacle, announcing himself to his new promotion in brutal fashion.
Honestly, that's what I was speaking to with all the clinch and the grab. Oh, goodness!
How scary was that finish? It's safe to say that if Michailidis was a Jamahal Hill or Jiri Prochazka, this would have easily made #1 on the list. A flying knee knockout with that kind of power behind it could only end in one way, and that's a few seconds of sweet dreams. No pun intended. Number 3 on the list, and we're back to the man we started with, Israel Adesanya. This was the fight that actually turned Pereira into a superstar in the UFC. The anticipation surrounding this particular fight was crazy. 2 bitter rivals meeting again, this time at the grandest stage. What was there not to anticipate? There was also a video circulating at the time that made the fight a must-watch.
Guy now he watches all my fights, and every time I fight, like clockwork, he'll try and put something out like, I beat this guy. But I've never ever watched any of his fights, ever.
Apparently, this particular interview was one Pereira saw in a pub, and he vowed to change his life around, shortly making it to the UFC after. It was the clash of bitter rivals who had everything to prove to each other and the world. Adesanya had held the middleweight title for 3 years, turning back the challenge of all corners, and had looked basically unstoppable at 185 pounds. But he was facing a beast, one who would stop at nothing to show he was literally made of stone.
Oh! Here's that left hook! Here to bed! Oh, another right! Adesanya's on one leg! 2 more! Down goes the champion! Pereira trying to close the show!
Adesanya made an effort to move at the end, but he was practically out. It would have been crazy to call that an early stoppage. With this win, Pereira became the new middleweight champion and made history, beating the same man 3 times. Although the two would go on to fight 2 more times, each sharing a win, Alex Pereira would always be the boogeyman in Adesanya's career. On to number 2, we have none other than the UFC samurai Jiri Prochazka at UFC 303. When it comes to Jiri, it's crazy to think that before he ever faced Pereira, he was an undefeated, weird, unstoppable force. However, he met his nemesis in Poatan, who beat him not once, but twice. Their first fight left a lot of questions unanswered, especially with many labeling the stoppage as premature. However, when these two met for the second time, there was no lifelines or early stoppages. Just a cold, brutal knockout.
Alex Pereira with an early head kick, round 2, and still!
This settled their rivalry for good, and even put Prochazka's career in a state of limbo. It was a brutal finish, even for a killer like Alex Pereira, and ought to be considered up there with the coldest in UFC history. Coming in at number 1 for the most brutal knockout of Alex Pereira, we go to UFC 303 in his fight against none other than Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill. The man who had beaten Glover Teixeira won the light heavyweight belt and looked like a serious threat to the rest of the division before he got injured. Now, out of all of Pereira's knockouts, this one certainly gave UFC fans the most joy. Not just because the fan favorite won in such a crazy fashion, but because the man he knocked out, Jamahal Hill, wouldn't stop running his mouth in the lead-up.
My words when I say this, I do not plan on taking him down. I do not plan on wrestling him. You know, this is a completely different sport. Kickboxing is kickboxing. MMA is MMA. I've been doing MMA for years. I've been bred in MMA. And whenever I do fight him, standing, I will knock him out.
This isn't to say Hill wasn't still a dangerous fighter, but when it came down to business, Pereira made him look like a complete novice. Someone who had no business being in the octagon. After this win, Pereira became the scariest man on the planet and one of the most decorated stars in combat sports. Although his recent loss to Ankalaev has shifted that a bit, Pereira's already a legend, and no one can argue that. With that, we've come to the end of this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for more combat sports content. See you all next time at Box Zone.